way of life can be free and beautiful. We have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls. Has barricaded the world with hate.
You're listening to the Political People podcast. We bring you interviews and discussions with progressive politicians, candidates, authors, and other political people. Thank you for listening.
Well, welcome everybody to the first episode of Political People podcast. We're on the air or on the waves or digital, whatever the heck it is for these podcast things. My name is Scott Smith. With me on the show today is Josie Moore and Keith Mundy. I think we're going to start off with what the heck is this show going to be about? We've decided to ask a question at the top of each show that we will try to answer. I don't know if we'll answer it every show, but we'll try to answer it. Today's question is, what the heck is this show about? What do we hope to accomplish? So, Josie.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me here in your home. This is wonderful.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. Keith, how are you?
I'm doing great today.
Well, I guess first off, let's let the listeners know a little bit about each of us and why we're here. Keith?
My name's Keith Mundy. I started my journey with Bernie, and an awful lot of what we're going to talk about is progressive politics, and Bernie's always going to be mentioned. And I started my journey with Bernie back in 2013 when I set up one of the very first Facebook pages for Bernie. And it was also for Elizabeth Warren, believe it or not. It was Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders. And of course that changed as I got to know each of the candidates. In doing so, I found myself getting involved in politics. Running for Congress wasn't on my bucket list, but it was something that I ended up doing in 2016. I felt it was going to help the movement. It did. We're here now, 2020, a very crucial time in American politics. It may be our last chance to have an actual president who will be for us, the people.
I absolutely agree. I believe that this is our last chance to turn things around. The way I see with everything that's going on with the inequality crisis and the climate crisis and then all of the crises that are within those, I feel like we are careening toward the cliff, and there will be a revolution. I just want it to be a peaceful one. And so
that's exactly how I feel. It's going to come. Let's just control it and make it a peaceful one.
Let's make it one that's led by people who want the best for all of us, and we are leading with our hearts, not with rage. So that's kind of where I'm at.
When did you decide to get involved? What made you say, I got to do something?
Well, I mean, just my personal story is I'm moving around a lot and rebuilding a lot. That's kind of I was born in Missouri, grew up in Denver. I moved to Buffalo for my graduate work, and that's where I met my husband. We moved to Schenectady, New York, which is right around Albany, when our daughter was just under 1. And that's where we were in 2015. And I remember when Hillary announced her candidacy, and my husband thought it was great, but I wasn't excited about it. I didn't vote for her in 2008 because even then I felt that she was too beholden to corporations. And I still felt that way. So I was really happy when Bernie announced his candidacy. I had heard of him beforehand. I liked him. And at first, my involvement was very reluctant. It was, okay, I'll do a little, but I have kids. I can't get too involved. But I just kept seeing gaps of things that needed to be done, and so I just kept doing them because I'm a control freak, I guess. But, and then next thing you know, I was a delegate. And that's kind of how it happened.
We have 3 control freaks together on this show. This should be really good. I'm a control freak.
And all three of us were in Philadelphia.
Keith is a friggin' control freak. That's too funny. Should be a fun show, gang.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have never thought myself a control freak, more of a leader.
It's all about objective and how you look at things.
Exactly.
How we frame it.
Exactly.
But yeah, so when we moved here in 2017, and again, just like I'd done a couple times before, I rebuilt my community, and it's taught me a lot about how to thoughtfully and intentionally build community. And I'm really excited about what's happening with Bernie's campaign right now, because it is less a campaign than it is a nationwide, thoughtful, intentional building of community. I see what he's doing as something that I've done on a personal level a few times, but he's doing it on a national way with a clear intention of really making our government reflect the values of our nationwide community. So
I totally agree with that.
I'm very happy to be here and be a part of this conversation and be a part of kind of navigating how a tiny part of how this movement happens.
So what we're also going to be doing is bringing in candidates, people who are running for Congress.
I didn't do my introduction yet.
Oh, excuse me, Scott. Hey, Scott, you're up.
Keith wants to get on to the meat of this show, but I want to talk about Scott.
It's Scott time, everybody.
I've had a weird path to activism. I've always had this bent to my nature. I was lucky to be born super friggin' privileged with parents that instilled in me that I could do any damn thing I thought I could do, and luckily I still stupidly think that a lot. But my mom told me just a couple months ago that when I was in third grade, which would have been 73, she was called to the school because at show and tell I used to do Vietnam War protests. So that was my early life. I was kind of like a hippie kid, loved the Beatles, and I ended up having a family young in life and went into the corporate world and forgot about all that stuff and just put my nose to the grindstone and was really a corporatist for a long time and saw how the sausage was made, and kind of realized later in life after my kids were grown that I needed to get involved and do something. Environment drove me first, and back in 2015 Spencer, my middle child, said, "Hey Dad, check out Bernie, he's running for president." And I had at that time had zero, I had given up on politics and everybody involved. They were all on the take. Citizen United was in full effect, and I had pretty much given up. And when I spent about a week watching Bernie video, and it was like fish that had been starving in the ocean, and that hook was in my mouth. And I literally been doing stuff like this, making video. And I started making video back in 2015, and there was nobody doing any Bernie stuff. And obviously nobody knew who he was, or basically, the hell, who is this guy? And so I started looking. My idea was to show people involved would motivate other people to be involved, because when you meet the people in this movement, you want to be part of that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, and that's how I found Keith. He was doing that up in Cleveland. He had already set up these pages, and I'm like, who the hell's this guy? So, I wanted to go film those people doing their organizing and all that stuff. So that's how I got involved, and I'm still doing it here. So that's why I'm here. Now, Keith, what's the rest of the show? Beth, what's the rest of the show about?
Well, okay, real quick here. We're going to be bringing people on the show that are running for office, progressives. We're going to be talking to them about how they see the future, what they're going to do to make this future better for all of us. The other kind of people, we're going to be bringing artists on, we're going to be bringing musicians on. This is going to be a show, but primarily it's going to be talking about the progressive movement.
Progressive solutions to the issues that... Exactly.
And it was funny, I was listening to Scott talk, and he went back all the way to the 70s, and I guess I should interject here that in 68, when I graduated from high school, we all thought it would be cool to go to Chicago for the convention. So we did. That was, and we had to run then, and we were just talking about revolution, and I'm 70 years old now. I can't run anymore, so we have to make this a peaceful revolution so that I can participate, even if it's with my walker. And as far as the political movement and what we have done so far, and it's really, Bernie is our leader, but the progressive movement is all of us together, moving in a direction that's going to take this country and make it better. And that is going to be the gist of the show. It's going to be what we're about, and that's progressiveness. Now, mind you, there's a ton of podcasts out there. We're going to try to make it entertaining. We're going to have a little humor. We're going to bring in a couple of comedians. We're going to do whatever it takes to get your attention so you focus on the prize, and the prize is Bernie Sanders.
So I have a question for you, Josie.
Yes.
We called you last week
Mm-hmm.
and said, hey, would you like to be on a podcast with us? Talk about, what did we say we were going to talk about?
I actually don't remember.
I think I shocked you so much that when I called you.
I was like, what? What? But yeah, I mean, it was only about 20 minutes in the call that I said, so what is the name of this podcast?
What would you like to bring to the party? What would you like to talk about?
I mean, of course, I love that we will be showcasing progressive candidates because I think they are given short shrift by mainstream media, and anything that we can do to get their voices and their perspectives and their experiences airtime is valuable. But I mean, this movement is all about not me, us. It is. I always say that we're not behind Bernie Sanders. We're with Bernie Sanders, and he's with us. And I want it to be about elevating normal people's voices. We're going to have activists on the show. We're going to have people who are on the front lines fighting fights that they've been fighting for years. And it's only now that Bernie Sanders is speaking to these issues on a national stage that they're really starting to see movement in what they're fighting for. People fighting for questions about justice in our justice system, or injustices in our justice system. I mean, there have people been fighting those fights for decades now. But I think because Bernie Sanders has brought their voices into the national conversation, that we can actually look more at what activists have been doing for so long.
I started to interject.
Yeah, but
because I'll step on your line all the time in these things.
It's okay.
Could you imagine if the media, if they actually reported on things like that, on the people that did stuff, instead of all the corporate crap that's crammed down our throats on a constant basis? It would be so nice. But when you see the people in the not me, us movement, I mean, it just, there's no other political movement out there that warms your heart. You know what I mean? I've been brought to tears a dozen times during, since Bernie started to run, by things that people did. When the bird flew up on the lectern when Bernie was there, I fucking sobbed like a baby. Just things like that, and the people working together, everybody coming together. It's just, that's the only way we're going to save this country and the planet, really, in my opinion. I want to bring talk. Last week all three of us were at the Our Revolution Summit in Columbus, and they brought up something. They were talking. Who brought up public service? Everybody's talking about candidates and politics, but who's the person that said this is public service? Anybody remember?
Was that Mayor Elkins?
It might have been.
Yeah.
Might have been Mayor Elkins.
Right. And we'll have him on the show, by the way.
Cool. But I want to talk about that I'd like to bring that point of view to this and motivate people to give something back. You're not going to get anything out unless you give something back to your local area, your neighborhoods, government. If you don't vote, then you're at the mercy of whoever's got the most money, basically.
Well, your vote's your only voice, so you should use it.
So
I disagree with that. I don't think the vote is the only voice.
Not necessarily.
I think that we've been kind of hammered by the media to think that democracy is about elections. And the media really doesn't talk about what does democracy mean in a richer context. Let's talk about workplace democracy. Let's talk about going to your city council meetings and speaking up. There's so many ways that people can exercise their voices that the media just doesn't talk about, and I think it's because our government doesn't want people doing it. They're very comfortable with you just come into a voting booth every 4 years or every 2 years, and that's the only time we want to hear from you.
But they're also suppressing the vote.
Yes, that is happening as well.
And in suppressing the vote, you're suppressing a million voices. And I don't want to get into vote by mail right now because the show isn't going to be about vote by mail today, but it will be down the road. But we need to make sure that everybody's registered automatically. We need to make sure that everybody gets the ballot. And yes, I will continue to say that the vote is a very important voice that you have. It
absolutely is.
But where I was going is that everybody can get involved in some way, whatever you're comfortable doing, and that's kind of cool that this is vital that it's such an inclusive movement. But if you're not comfortable knocking on a door and canvassing, then don't do that. Sign a postcard and mail it out, or visit one of the offices and make sign. I mean, there's 100 little things you can do to help out and be involved. And I gotta say, when I because of my advanced age, I really hadn't made any new friends prior to 2015. I kind of just isolate people out of my life, because there's that cone as you get older that you let people into your life just narrows and narrows down. And I hadn't made any new friends until the Bernie thing came along, and I'm like, oh, these people are like me. They're actually pretty cool. So there's just all kinds of people, and you can do anything, whether it's make media or help hand out yard signs or whatever it is. Be involved. And what you said, that just in my neighborhood, our little Copley, Ohio City Council was trying to cram a new building down our throat, and they had no idea, but somebody back here in the neighborhood organized all these homes, and we went up there, and they crapped their pants because we had 150 people in the little town hall where they normally get 3 or 4 people that show up every week. So it's kind of cool, and we stopped them. And
the thing that's so great about that is I'm sure that you have a wide spectrum of political ideologies on this blog.
Oh yeah, we were all working together.
And yet, what you had here was a neighborhood not me us movement.
We did, but then, believe me, there was probably a lot more conservatives there than liberals.
But absolutely,
and
the thing is I don't think that Bernie Sanders is way out when it comes to the values he's espousing.
He's so crazy.
Because I see those values in our neighborhoods. Back in October, we had a microburst hit our little tiny section, and it was like a little mini tornado. And as soon as it started, a text went out to a bunch of people in the neighborhood, everyone checking in on each other when we lost power. And then my husband and I went outside and saw a tree on our cars, and I showed everyone, I said, hey, look, I'm getting a new car. And then the next day, the people who could get out of their driveways, they went and bought coffee for the whole neighborhood and bagels, and everyone was helping each other clean up. And we have people, I'm the Bernie house on the street, there's a Trump house down the street, and everything in between. And yet, when it came to coming together as a community, everyone brought the same value system. And it was not me, us. And so, to me, it's just a matter of where do we stop that value system? Do we stop it at the neighborhood? Or do we say, you know what, those values, they extend further? And
it becomes socialism when it hits your taxes, apparently. Because if, that's what people think. If it apparently, for a lot of people, that's where the demarcation is. If I got to pay for some other person's health care, that's friggin' socialism.
Well, when I spoke to the Libertarians, or wait a minute, was who did I speak to that in 16? The
Tea Party people.
I spoke to the Tea Party people, yeah. And, they were okay with anything that gave them money. Mm-hmm. But when it was inner city people all of a sudden, no, we shouldn't give them any money.
Yeah.
And by the way, I did get reprimanded for speaking to the Tea Party by the Democratic Party. And my explanation to them was, well, they're going to be constituents also if we win.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have to be talking to everybody. And what you just said, the neighborhood comes together. And this is the best time to wear your Bernie garb is during an emergency. This way everybody sees who you are and what you stand for.
Hey, I want to go to an audio clip here. What you said about the neighborhood and the movement. This is a guy I filmed. Keith was with me. We were in Pittsburgh in 2016. It was right after, I think it was in April, because it was right after we had our primary. This is a 90-year-old Bernie bro in Pittsburgh. Listen to what he says about Bernie's message. I saw him in there, and I'm like, I gotta talk to this guy.
Are you one of those Bernie bros they talk about?
Bernie Bros.
Are you a Bernie bro?
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
90 years old.
90. What makes you like Bernie? What about Bernie?
What do I like about Bernie? Well, he has all positive things. I mean, Bernie, he's trying to do something that the rest of them are not doing. He's trying to create things for the people. And he calls it socialism. I call it caring about your neighbors and that. I mean, it's down to the grassroots Bernie's talking about, you know.
Hey, I'm 53. He's the first politician I ever believed him. Okay?
That's the way with me. That's the first one I ever believed. I was a Roosevelt back then when I was a kid now. Truman, you know, I come out of the service.
This line here cracks me up.
But this guy has something new, right?
Anyway, this guy has something new. That's something coming from that guy.
Yeah,
So-
the 90-year-old's saying that the something 70-year-old has something new.
Right. I know, that's too funny.
It's not new.
It's not.
What it is that we have just been told how we're supposed to be for so long that we're not taking care of each other anymore. And this whole Christianity thing, and I don't want to talk about I know.
This whole Christianity thing.
It is the whole Christianity thing, believe me. Especially the religious right, I think they have forgotten what Christianity is.
Yeah.
And that's really what this Jewish person is bringing us. Is a real firm grip of the obvious that we should all be, Christian to one another. And that's what makes Bernie stand out so much. And I'm never going to pick on Christians. I mean,
Whatever.
I was
You
raised
know
a
we
good
will.
Catholic and a little bit of
We're
Jew on the
We're
side.
not going to make them fight lions.
No. I'm sure I had family members that had to do that.
Sometimes I look back and I'm just lucky my parents were as liberal as they were when I was that age. Like, came home from catechism one day and said, I'm not going back there. I'm done with that. I think I was about 12 and realized the hypocrisy and you can sin all week, but you can confess your sins on Saturday night. You're good to go Sunday morning. What's up with that? You're either do good or you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're either a good person or you're
Can't
not. Right, exactly. Yeah.
We're going to pause the show here for a moment to perform a 1-minute scene from the classic play Nightmare in America, brought to you by our top sponsor, Medicare for All.
We are in the plush office of a top healthcare insurance executive. He is interviewing a doctor to understand the nationwide push for Medicare for All.
And then, after surgery, when the patient is better, we send them home.
That's fantastic, doctor, but I'm still not clear. When is the profit generated?
No. There isn't any profit. The goal is to cure people, to make them better.
But how will my friends and I get richer than we already are from this?
Well, no one is meant to get rich. That's not what healthcare is about.
I'm sorry, you've lost me. If Medicare for All is not for making money, what is it for?
For helping people get healthy and to stay healthy so they can have a great quality of life.
No. We need to start again. Hold on. Who gets the money? Does Bernie get the money?
No. We spent it on helping people. So people in our country are healthy. And for when they're sick, they get the care they need to get better.
Are you even hearing me? The money. Who gets the money?
And scene. This message is brought to you by Medicare for All. We now return you to our regularly scheduled programming.
Oh, okay. Welcome back to the show, gang. That was fun.
That was fun.
I haven't done that in a while. All right, cool. What are we talking about next? Have we answered the question that we posed at the top of the show? What was that question?
I believe we want to know what we're doing here, but I think the bigger question for anyone tuning in to our inaugural show is why should I keep listening to you? Why should I sign up for your second podcast?
Well, on our second podcast, I think we might have a guest, Chris Mullin, and we're going to talk about a subject that'll be ongoing for several months until we get to the convention that summer, and that's about delegates to the convention. As a matter of fact, Josie and Keith are delegates.
Chris will be coming on the show. He'll be talking about election law also. He is the top election lawyer in the state of Ohio, and fortunately we have him on our team.
I think what is crazy about the delegate process is that it is so mysterious, it is so confusing, and people don't seem to realize it varies by state. I was a delegate back in 2016 in New York, and that's a completely different process than what happened here. I think both are great processes, but it is also this thing in which most people, all they see is they watch TV during the convention and see all those people and their delegates, but a lot of people don't question how did they get there and why them. So I think that that's a really great question that we need to start kind of bringing into the forefront to talk about. These are the cogs that make our political machine work. We need to know what they are.
And that'll be explained by Chris. I know that I've been through this delegate selection twice here in Ohio. Before this, I was never involved in politics. One of the other things that I learned the last time around was the fact that we elect somebody to the Electoral College, which I think is also something we need to talk about.
The delegates do?
Not the delegates, but people that are delegates to the state, Ohio State Democratic Party Convention. And each congressional district picks people to serve on the Electoral College. This is something that we're going to be involved in this time around. We will be at the convention, and hopefully one of us will get elected to be on the Electoral College. This is never talked about. I had no idea how the Electoral College was, who got to serve on the Electoral College. And as we've learned from past elections, both with Bush and with Trump, the Electoral College decided that these people to become president. So it is an important job, and it's one that is never talked about. Who are those people also? And that will be explained by Chris also, and that'll be on our next show, hopefully.
Back in 2016, when I came with you to the delegate thing out in Medina, what was that called? That when we
went to the caucus.
The caucus.
It was the caucus. Yeah.
I consider myself fairly knowledgeable. I felt like a total dumbass when I got there. I had no idea how the sausage of the people were elected, and I thought you voted in Ohio, and whoever won the election, well, that's they got all the. There's a lot more to it, so I've learned a lot, and hopefully people listening to this show will learn some stuff too as we go along.
Well, we're going to educate them about every little thing that we possibly can.
That we know.
And we're going to also talk in other shows. We're going to have guests on who will talk about how you can take the party back for the people at the county level. Say Cuyahoga County, Summit County. Where you become a precinct captain and you get elected to the central committee. And every 4 years we elect people to the central committee of the state party also.
Is that just Ohio or do all states do it?
I don't know how other states do it. I really don't. I'm focusing on Ohio because that's where we live. But you can be elected to the Central Committee, and that is done during a regular election. In other words, you'll go in and you'll vote for people just like you're voting for mayor. Or, and most people they don't even know what's going on, but they check the person they might think they know. This time around, and it's going to happen in 2022, when we have a big Senate race in this state also, we're going to vote for people to be on the Central Committee of the state party. We need to get as much representation both locally, at the county level, and at the state level, because that's where the decisions are made.
And everything gets pushed uphill, basically, right?
I always thought shit ran downhill.
I know, but you can't take over the party from the top down. We have to.
Yes, we do.
I think it needs to go both ways.
Yeah,
Well,
it does.
Bernie at the top and us at the bottom.
If Bernie wins,
We'll meet in the
there's
middle.
going to be and you folks know that I did run somebody for the DNC chair against Tom Perez, and it was my way of being able to look behind the curtain and see how this was all done, at the national level.
Because apparently they can change the rules midweek.
Well, they just did, didn't they? Yesterday or Friday, I forget when it was.
Pretty amazing.
No, it's not amazing. When you have as much money as Mike Bloomberg has, then you can change anything you want.
Yeah, I sure do wish climate activists had that much money so we could have gotten a climate debate.
And honestly, I think that, when I went to see Mike Bloomberg in Akron, I wished I would have had more time to ask him for money for different things that we need to do. 1, vote by mail. 2, for climate change. For all the different things that he could be putting his money into. Instead, he says that he's putting this money in his campaign to get rid of Trump. He wants to get Trump out of office. The reality of it is to me, and I always say this, billionaires need not apply. We do not need any more elections that are bought. Okay. But going back to the national level, when we were down in Atlanta in 2017, it was, again, I feel that an awful lot of things that are done in politics are just theater. We go through the motions. I knew that Tom Perez was going to be the next chair of the DNC when President Obama nominated him.
Yep.
It was a slam dunk. They made it look like Keith Ellison had a chance, but he didn't have a chance in hell. It was just the way it is. The party is owned, and it's still owned right now by the Clintons. They bought the party. That's how they were able to steal everything. As far as I'm concerned, they stole everything in 2016 from the people. This is what this is all about, and this is what this podcast is going to be about, is how do we take it back for the people?
And we're not just talking about the party. We're talking about our country.
We're talking about the world.
We're talking about the world. About there is for, by, of the people. I never get the order right, but and that's what this really needs to be about. Is how do we create a government in which, and the government is the structures by which we run our civilization. How do we make sure that these structures reflect our values? How do we make sure these structures the decisions are being made at every point of every process in a way that is aligned with how everyday people live their lives and the values they bring to their everyday lives? How do we do that?
Okay, let's change gears right now. Guess who's debating down in Columbus at this very moment?
Tell me.
Morgan Harper.
I'm
good.
so
Yeah.
excited
Yeah.
about her.
Yeah.
I
No.
am so excited about her. I've watched videos of her. I saw her speak last week.
Yeah,
At the
I had no
Organized.
idea who she was
Oh,
until
you mean you
last
hadn't
week.
been Morganized yet?
No, I hadn't.
Yes.
But she blew me away when I saw her last
Yeah,
Saturday.
she's something else.
So who's she running against, Keith? She's
Joyce Bating.
She's in the primary next month, March 17th. She'll be running against another Democrat. Who?
Beatty.
Okay. And how long has she been in that office?
She's been in that office for a long time, and honestly, she was one of those people. I remember when we had to go to a special meeting of the Central Committee of the Democratic Party, and I was the only person running for Congress that was invited, not knowing that they were doing a show and tell. Hey, this is the progressive. He's running for Congress. Are we going to endorse him? And she was just a table over, and she just kept staring at me. I had no idea who she was at the time, and really wanted nothing to do with our table. We had a small group of people that were progressives. And fortunately enough, we did get endorsed by the state party. None of the local parties endorsed us, but the state party did. I think Morgan being young and smart as all get out, and the fact that she's already worked in government already, working for Cordray when Cordray was in Washington, I think that this is going to be a benefit to the people of her district if they elect her.
And I think what Morgan is doing is what progressive candidates all over the country is doing, but I think it's particularly highlighted in this election with Joyce Beatty, who, as we said, there are these rules for how things are done in the party that people don't really know about, but if you're in the party, you know the rules. Joyce Beatty has followed these unwritten rules, worked her way through the party, and when it was her turn, she ran for office. She got the office. And I think that there is this feeling among many establishment Democrats that we played by the rules of the party. We only ran when it was our turn, when we got permission. Who are you to run without permission? And I think that there's a lot of, they feel very offended that, progressives feel entitled to simply run for office.
Well, I think that's the American way, isn't it?
Well, yes, but I think what progressive
They're amazed,
candidates,
right? They're shocked that think we have the right to do that.
But I think what progressive candidates across the country are doing is exactly what Morgan is doing. Is she's saying, we can't wait for permission.
No, you can't. That's why I ran.
There's too much at stake.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, if who we have in office isn't actually serving the people, and we can look around at our communities and see very quickly, is there very much being done for our community? Is the person who's in office fighting for what we need? And if the answer is no, then someone needs to stand up and run, and that's what Morgan is doing. And I'm so grateful for her and everyone else like her who is just saying, dag nabbit. I don't think they talk like that, but I'm just gonna run because I am the candidate I want to see.
We also have to remember that most of the people that are Democrats, that are congressmen in our state, and we are so gerrymandered, we only have 4 congressmen out of the 16. All of them seem to vote for the war budget. And everybody goes, well, how are you going to pay for Medicare for all? How are you going to fix the planet? How are you going to give free education? Well, if you keep voting for the war budget, we're not going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to change Congress out. It's time to clean house and get regular Democrats out that are with the program, who take money from corporations, and put people in office who are going to be for the people. Yeah. And stop voting for the damn war budgets.
When you're voting for the war budgets, you're voting for that military-industrial complex, and considering that from the population, who they pull from to go be their cannon fodder is usually going to be low-income communities. So what you have a lot of people, they don't even need a draft anymore because there are so many people that is their only route.
Option.
Their only route out of poverty is through the military.
That's horrible.
Where they might die, where they might get an injury that's with them for life, where they may be psychologically
suicide.
Traumatized.
That's the biggest problem.
That is their only route. When our schools are being just decimated by legislators deciding here's what we think makes a good school, and it's based on, it's based on such insane logic.
Let's go back to the military.
We don't invest in the country. We invest in war and death. We don't invest in
war's our number one industry in this country.
We would have the best. our country would be, we would have a Star Trek future. It would literally, seriously, we can.
Well, I had a flip phone once.
We're smart enough to do almost anything. We could have a future like that if we didn't put it all into destruction. Hey, so let's go back to these people that are running. So Morgan, she's running for Congress. She's running.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
a big. That's a big. Who
it.
else is running for Congress as a progressive in Ohio? So we Daniel
Kilgore.
and he's also down in Columbus.
Well, part of it goes down to Marysville, but not to Columbus.
That's a really
Yeah.
goofed up district.
Yes, it is.
Then the other races are all state races.
No, we have Xavier over in the 5th district.
Okay.
He's running, but he has a primary, and the chances of him winning and getting through the primary are slim and none because they've got a party person that they've already chosen. That's
Democrats have.
Democrats
Yeah,
have.
yeah.
Yeah, you have to understand that what has happened since 16 and what we saw in 18, if you're a progressive, they're going to run somebody against you. It was like they had to find people to run. They didn't have enough people to run because it was a gerrymandered district. Who wanted to waste their time running for an office they knew they were going to lose? What happened in 18, what was interesting, is I put my name out there that I was going to run again. And I think we ended up with 6 candidates, and I didn't. I didn't file.
Just to stop Keith from running.
Yeah, I didn't file, and of course everybody, the plain dealer even announced that I was running. Even though I didn't file, which I had to call them and let them know that no, I'm not running. But this is what's happening in the Democratic Party. They do not want progressives running. So if you are a progressive, they're going to find somebody to run against you, just to get you in the primary, and of course they're going to lose in the general. Almost everybody we're talking about here, except for Morgan, is going to get beat because they are in a gerrymandered district. They don't have the money. They don't have a chance. You have to understand that when I ran against Jim Renacci, he had $2 million. $2 million. Plus he's the $40 million man. He's worth $40 million.
But maybe, just maybe, Democrats actually do know that maybe progressives do have a chance. Because, and this is what we're saying about Bernie, is that he can reach people across the political spectrum because it's not about left versus right. It's about the 99% versus the 1%. And so maybe the Democratic Party is making sure that even progressives in what seem like Republican gerrymandered, you don't have a chance districts,
which they
are making sure progressives don't even get past the primary because maybe they actually do know they would have a chance.
Well,
they might possibly win, and they would rather have a Republican in those offices than a progressive.
Well, wow, that's an interesting concept. I
hear that all the time, but I can't freaking believe it.
Neither can I. So. But here's the other problem. And I talked to an awful lot of these people last weekend. Everybody that was running for Congress had a few words with me, and they go, "Well, what do I do to win?" I said, "Well, this first time you're not going to win." I said, you have to remember that we're going to have a census this year, and in 2022, we're going to have all new boundaries and all new districts. So what I want you to do is I want you to go through the process and taste it and smell it to see whether or not you really want to do this. Because it's one of the toughest things you do in your life is run for office. I don't care if it's for councilman or for whatever level. It takes an awful lot of your time. One of the things I told Scott, we're going to lose. I know we're going to lose. Of course, we ran a race like we were going to win. And I thought to myself, it's not going to bother me one bit if we lose. Well, 6 months afterwards, I'm still kind of walking around in a kind of a fog going, gosh, what can I do? Well, we couldn't have done anything better than what we did to win.
No,
even if we had $1 million,
we just couldn't get the word out.
Well, even if we had $1 million and got the word out, it wasn't going to happen in the 16th district. And the same thing is with an awful lot of people who are running, except for Morgan.
Well, listen, that's really at the congressional level.
That's at the congressional level.
These state house
We do
offices,
have a couple of chances at the state
and
house.
let's talk about
Those are a lot
how important it is to take back our state legislature. What they're doing to public education is shameful.
Well, not only that,
It
but
is
the
shameful.
fracking and the pipelines and the
Yeah, what
fact
they're
that, you
doing
know,
with we need to convert to renewable energy. They have been bought.
Real quick
by
here,
the
if you're not
companies.
if you're not in Ohio, we're in Ohio.
yeah, real quick here.
Our-
I want to talk about Ohio real quick here.
We
Go
got
ahead.
a dumbass state, man.
We have both the
we
Senate.
we have lovely people.
They are
but-
great.
yeah.
I've moved back here.
We have
twice.
the Senate and the legislature that are controlled by the Republicans and strongly controlled by the Republicans. The governor of our state is, and all those offices, both Secretary of State and State Attorney General, are held by Republicans. And of course, we have a Supreme Court that's overwhelmed with Republicans. That's our problem right now, is the fact that this is a Republican state. It's not even purple. It is red. So what's...
Yeah, they passed a bill that forces doctors to reimplant and ectopic pregnancies.
Ectopic
And
pregnancy.
it can't even be done.
It's not even a real
It's
thing.
not even a real
No,
thing.
It's
not
not
a real
even a
thing,
thing.
yeah. Well,
And if you
they're all doctors down there,
if you're in school now in Ohio and you take a science test and decide that the science doesn't match whatever your beliefs are, you can answer the question wrong, and it won't be held against you on the test, right? You know that, right?
Oh my god,
That's like
that's
you don't.
ridiculous.
Should we talk about ECOT?
So, but it is Ohio's a nice state. It is a nice place to live. But man, we gotta get some of these people elected. So who are some of these people? Amy Cox.
Amy Cox is one of my favorite people.
I heard her speak, and I just thought, I just want to go out and have
We're
wine with her.
And by the
but
way,
I
we're going to
also
have
want
Amy
her
on
to
the
win.
show.
Okay.
Excellent.
We are definitely going to have Amy on the
Very
show.
excited about that.
One of my friends is helping out with her campaign, David Sparks, who ran for state office back in...
Where's
in
Amy's
16.
district at? Where she's running down in Dayton?
Down around Dayton somewhere,
Okay.
yeah.
Kofi Pepra. I don't know Kofi.
I don't
Where's he
either.
at?
Don't have a clue.
Okay.
We should look on the internet.
Kofi
and
is
find
on.
out.
But what an extraordinary man with an extraordinary personal
Story.
history.
What
Yeah.
a story, isn't
and
it?
and that is someone
What a
who
survivor.
has gone through so much more than any of us can imagine, and he's come out the other side more principled, more resolute in his moral compass, and more committed to making sure that he fights to see that other people don't go through what he did, and he does it with such intelligence and such dignity. And such really graciousness. I was so very impressed by him.
I would like to have him on the show. I'd love to have him share his story with our listeners. Who else do we have? Warner Lang.
Yeah, Warner. I was just with Warner yesterday.
Where's
He's-
Warner at?
Warner's over by Youngstown.
Okay.
Warner ran for Congress in 16. He was also a delegate to the convention in 16. Again, it's a tough district. Again, it's a gerrymandered district.
This is a state house.
State House,
Okay.
yes. And he has, I think, 2 people running against him that are Democrats. And so we'll see with that. He's upbeat. When I talked to him yesterday, and he gave a good speech yesterday out in Youngstown.
Kim McCarthy. Do you guys know Kim?
I don't.
All of these people we are inviting to have on the show. We'd love to talk to you, ask you questions about why you're doing this and what you want to accomplish. And so this is an open invitation to everybody to come beyond political people.
And that's including people that don't live in Ohio. We're going to have some people, friends of mine on the West Coast, who are running for office. We'll probably have them phone in, and we'll do an interview with them also.
Nobody was doing this back in 2016. Were you here in 2016 in
In
Ohio?
Ohio? No, I was in New York.
Okay. That was...
No, we were on a couple podcasts.
There was a cut. No,
Yeah.
I mean not podcast. I mean, the thing I noticed last week at the Our Revolution Summit was they have all these progressives that are stepping up to try to take over a position and, change government. And that really wasn't going on like this back at this time. So it's really good to see this. And you see it all over the country.
What I also loved about that event is we started the event, and so we really led with, it wasn't the big names, it wasn't, the people who are, stepping up to be the big leaders, but the people who are doing the groundwork. There were activists. There were people like Rachel Collier, who has been fighting for justice at the Cuyahoga County Jail for years now. There's Daphne, who's an activist in Mahoning, and she's fighting for women's, and she's fighting for women's rights. And these are people on the ground doing the really hard fights that can be so demoralizing, and it can be so easy to be beat down when you're working with little to no resources, and you just can't seem to get an inch in terms of just trying to get our government to just be moral. And so, I have such great respect for the work they do. And so, I hope to have activist voices on as well.
And I was, again, with Daphne yesterday and talked with her a few times yesterday. That group, I've been involved with that group since the beginning. And they are one of the coolest groups, honestly.
The Youngstown area?
The Youngstown group, and that I've helped start so many groups in Ohio. And we even during the summer, we were painting signs for Bernie. Now, I'm not that guy that usually gets out and paints signs. I was out there painting signs with them, And they are an exciting group, and they are a real eclectic group.
Chucky Dennison.
Oh, Chucky, Mr. Labor, Mr. UAW. Traveled the country, with our revolution. Was out in Iowa 3-4 times now speaking.
Oh, hold on a second, guys. Speaking of Iowa, as we record this show, right now there are thousands of Bernie Sanders volunteers in Iowa, and this show is probably going to air after we know the results of Iowa. What's going to happen? Bernie's going to kick ass, but
of course
I just got to say, and I think you were getting ready to say the same thing. I am just in awe of those volunteers out there canvassing and helping out. It's amazing to see that. So thank you to everybody that went out there and did that. Anything you're doing out there, I appreciate it. So I wanted to get that in.
I read stories from them all the time, and I have to say I'm envious because really just going out and talking to people one-on-one and it's about sharing your story and really hearing and empathizing with other people's stories. And for them, it's such an uplifting experience to be able to connect with people on such a human and really quite emotionally generous level all day when they're out there canvassing. You have people who are just like diehard introverts saying, I've never been so energized in my life.
And by the way, it changes their life forever.
Yeah.
It really does.
I remember a guy who came to me, who was a Republican at the time, who came to me and asked me to work on the campaign. He wanted to be our videographer.
I voted for Reagan. Okay, it's out on the show. Keith outed me. Thanks for freaking out me, Keith.
I just wanted to say that it does change people's lives. I mean, people that were introverts when I met them in the last campaign are now leaders.
I was no introvert.
No, you were not. But I'm talking about other people, and they've become leaders. They have become those people they get up and speak now. What's happening, out in Iowa is interesting because I get sometimes stuff from people. They'll email me stuff that I shouldn't have, documents and things. I used to be in the legal business, and I used to do investigative work and push paper and find people. And I got some numbers that were just shocking, that Bernie Sanders is over 30% in Iowa. Yet when I was watching CNN this morning, it's still a tight race between Bernie and Biden.
Right.
Bullshit.
And let's just remember that Bernie does really well at caucuses. I mean, back in 2016, I believe there were 11 caucus states. He won 9, tied in another, and then just barely lost another. And since then, 9 of the 11 caucus states have switched to primaries.
Well, here's the deal, too. You know, I feel he did win Iowa the last time.
Yeah.
I remember I was at we were at the Cuyahoga County Democratic dinner, Scott and I. And Nina Turner came in. She had just got off the flight, and she came running up to me, and she goes, I go, you just got back from Nevada? And she goes, yeah, we're going to sue. We're going to take them to court. You know, and because we felt that we had that stolen from us, which we did.
Yeah.
You know, and as a matter of fact, there's a video out there of Feinstein laughing at us. You know, and I can remember, going back to laughing, and I remember the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party laughing at me. All the whole state laughing at me for starting the whole Bernie Sanders thing. They go, who's he? He's not going to make it. What do you think? Who do you think you are? What are you doing?
That's totally different this time around.
Oh, totally different. No, totally different this time around.
There's no comparing it to 2016.
What is happening in Iowa is just a microcosm of what is going to happen in the United States, and that is just it's about people talking to people, caring about people. And that's what the Not Me, Us movement is about. And I mean, that's what we need to bring to our communities, and not just when, tragedy strikes like a little tornado hits, but we need to bring that to our communities in a very political way, that we need to change things politically. And the only way that's going to happen is if all of us talk to our neighbors, talk to our family members, talk to anyone we can, and ask them what is important for you, and then care. People need to feel cared about. And
that's the truth. During the UAW strike, I stood on the line many times here in Parma, and also out at, help me out here, the one that they closed
Youngstown?
Youngstown. But it's a special name they've got for it out there.
I don't know.
The plant out there. Lordstown. Okay. So we're out of Lordstown. And I'm there with all the guys that are, UAW members. And, of course, you're standing on the line for hours. And all these people had voted for Trump. And they go, well, really, we don't want to vote for Bernie because we have a good health plan. And, of course, I would talk to them and say, listen, if you elect Bernie and he gives us Medicare for all of a sudden, when you go on strike, you're not fighting for health care benefits anymore.
You're fighting for wages.
You're just fighting for wages. I said, wouldn't that make your life better?
Did they ever even think about that?
No, of course they didn't think about this. They're Republicans. They voted for Trump. How many people that voted for Trump did not think? I'm sorry. I'm going to say it right out loud to everybody out there. If you voted for Trump, you weren't thinking, think this time.
I'm not going to join you on that.
That's okay. I'm going to say it.
I think that a lot of people who voted for Trump were hurting, and he said he was going to fight for them, and so.
And how much has he fought for them?
He has not. That's the thing. But
so they should think a little harder this time.
He was the only general election major party candidate who didn't have a track record of not fighting for people. He didn't have a track record.
Wait a second. He had a track record cheating on every one of his wives. He had a track record. He had a track record.
People. He went and he made promises, and they're desperate. They're hurting. I mean, if you are living on $18,000 a year or $30,000 a year, you are desperate for anyone to help.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Okay, and I know that feeling of like, I'm drowning and you appear to be throwing me a line.
Well, that tax scam helped me, I got to tell you.
So he hasn't kept his promises, quite the opposite, and I think a lot of people who voted for Trump are ripe for coming into our movement.
All those independents. There's a lot of independents in that category.
But it's got to be done by people like you and me, going up to them and giving them the respect and the empathy and the humanity that we all deserve. Because when we say not me, us, we mean them too.
That's right.
I see people every day switch over, on social media. Hey, I used to, be a Trumpster. Now we can't, as much as we want to hate, or some of us, you might be better than me, but I want to hate them sometimes. We can't do that. We can't treat them like that. We have to welcome them in, and if they were in the neighborhood and the tree fell down, we'd be cleaning up the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So we got to look at it that way.
I mean, we are fighting to get them good health care. We are fighting to save the world for their children and grandchildren just as much as we're fighting for our own. So, you know, I mean, they may not like Bernie now, but we're still going to fight for them.
Whether you like it or not.
Hey, I want to let everybody know listening out there, we would like you to contact the show. Let us know what you thought. Give us any ideas, topics that you think we should talk about in the future. Our email address is polippl.podcast@gmail.com. That's polippl.podcast@gmail.com. And we've got the usual Twitters and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. You can find us there. Looking forward to other shows. There's no shortage of important things we can be talking about. Crazy shit happens daily, and we hope to bring you some good insight into it. Josie, what'd you think of the first show? Did you have fun?
I had a great time. I loved the way, no matter how much we tried to control the conversation, we didn't manage to do that. And those are the best conversations, the best afternoons, best evenings. I love when I get around people and we just get so excited to be talking about stuff. So I've had a great time, and I'm really looking forward to doing this again and again and again.
And all I'm going to say is, and I'm going to date this show, I hope that Bernie just kills it tomorrow in Iowa. We're all waiting, we're all excited, and by the way, I believe that number is over 30% for Bernie. And if it is, look out, people. We're coming.
He outperforms the polls every time. Last time he did better than the polls said he would. So he's going to crush.
That's because the polls aren't asking the people he's bringing into the political revolution.
I don't have a landline.
Yeah, I don't have a rotary phone either anymore.
But none of the three of us are really the character or the avatar that the media paints of who that, you know. The typical Bernie person's a 25-year-old Bernie bro if you listen to the media. So
there are so many older people in every group that I'm involved with around the country. There are people that are older than I am.
Well, what the media doesn't want to admit is that Bernie appeals to everybody.
He does, totally.
There's no age that's restricted.
I have my 5-year-old granddaughter running around the house up in Brooklyn, New York with a Bernie button on every day. She loves it.
And if Bernie was sitting here, I think he would tell us it's not Bernie, it's what Bernie's about. It's the message he brings, it's the bringing the people together. That's what it's about, and that's what's important. And that's what I hope we bring and can talk about in the show every week.
I am really
till next time. So till next time.
Thanks for joining the political people. We'll see you then.
Feel the burn.
Feel the burn, not me, us.
See y'all.
We have to fear is fear itself.
I still have a dream. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.